82% shot down in one day. Impossible. Not by Spitfires pushing to the edge of their wings. Not by barrage balloons dangling steel cables, but by anti-aircraft shells, exploding with impossible accuracy near their targets without ever touching them. What they were witnessing was a secret guarded at the same level as the atomic bomb. The Allies called it VT, variable time. August 1944, the day 82% fell from the sky. The Germans called it the Fieseler Phi 103. To Londoners, it would become the Buzz Bomb, a pulse jet-powered cruise missile flying at 640 kilometers an hour, carrying 850 kilograms of high explosive. Range, 250 kilometers, just enough to leap the channel. At Peenemünde, Major General Walter Dornberger and Dr. Robert Lusser believed they had built the perfect vengeance weapon. The math was on their side. Anti-aircraft gunners would need more than 10,000 shells for a single hit. Ballistics said so. The V1 was unstoppable. June 13th, 1944, 1 week after D-Day. At 4:25 a.m., the first V1 hit London. Grove Road, Bow. 6 dead, 30 wounded, 200 made homeless. To Londoners, it was the sound of terror, the puttering engine overhead, and then silence. If you heard it cut out, it meant death was already falling. German command calculated that even if just 25% of von Second got through, London would suffer more destruction than the entire Blitz of 1940. At first, the numbers looked normal. June 1944. British defenses intercepted just 17% of incoming von Second. By late June, 24%. Higher than expected, but explainable. Then came July. Reports showed British guns claiming kills with impossibly low ammunition. Observers watched von Second flying steady toward London, suddenly surrounded by flak bursts, too far for direct hits, and yet they fell. 74%? This cannot be right. By late August, the number reached 82%. In one extraordinary day, 4 out of every 5 von Second were destroyed before reaching London. To Flak Regiment 155 watts, it was unexplainable. To German scientists, it was impossible. Behind these numbers was the bigger picture. June 6th, 1944. Operation Overlord. Allied troops stormed the beaches of Normandy. Hitler needed time. Time to regroup. Time to hold the Western Front. He believed vengeance weapons could buy that time. Terror from the skies. If London was crushed, maybe, just maybe, the invasion would falter. Every night, the sirens wailed. Families packed into shelters. Londoners learned to fear silence. The moment the buzzing stopped, you had seconds before impact. At first, Britain fought back with what it had. Fighters like the Spitfire and Tempest raced the bombs, risking their lives to tip wings against von Second. Balloons floated across the sky, steel cables ready to slice wings. Anti-aircraft guns fired tens of thousands of shells for almost no effect. Then the game changed. In late June, the British redeployed. Anti-aircraft regiments lined the south coast. American SCR 584 radar locked onto targets automatically. M9 gun directors calculated firing solutions. And inside the shells,
Fuse looks
something
good.
new. A fuse that didn't need direct hits. A fuse that could sense its target. For the first time, shells detonated at just the right moment. Not when gunners guessed, but when the bomb itself decided. The Germans ran every test. They inspected missiles. Perfect. They suspected sabotage. None. They even launched test von Second over their own soil. Normal performance. Nothing explained why, over the channel, von Second fell like flies. To the German mind, this was sorcery. To the Allies, it was science. By the final week of August 1944, the vengeance weapon had met an invisible wall, 82% destroyed. A miracle to Londoners. A nightmare to Berlin. Inside the shell was a radio, a transmitter the size of your thumb. It sent out a signal. When that signal bounced back, shifted by the Doppler effect, the circuit listened. And when the target was close enough, the Thyratron fired. The shell exploded in midair. This was not science fiction. It was a miniature radar inside every shell, a fuse that could think. To survive, it had to endure 20,000 Gs of acceleration, spin at 25 to 30,000 revolutions per minute. Inside vacuum tubes no bigger than hearing aid valves, cushioned in wax and oil. a battery that could sleep for years and wake up in milliseconds after firing, a shell that knew when to explode, a miracle of physics, hidden in plain sight. The idea began in Britain, but it was the Tizard mission of 1940, a flight carrying secrets across the Atlantic, that gave America the knowledge. At Johns Hopkins Applied Physics Laboratory, Section T, physicist Merle Tuve and his team took on the impossible, making the fuse small and strong enough for anti-aircraft guns. August 1942, Chesapeake Bay. USS Cleveland fired 4 shells with the new fuse. 3 drones were destroyed. The test ended early because there were no targets left. This was not a weapon built in secret bunkers by slave labor. This was built by democracy's industry, by Crosley in Cincinnati, by RCA and Western Electric, by Sylvania, whose hearing aid tubes became the heart of the fuse. By war's end, America built 22 million fuses, at peak 40,000 every day. Cost dropped from $732 to just $18. The total investment? $1 billion in 1,940 seconds money. And Crosley alone produced 5,016,000 units a day. Germany built wonders with slave labor, underground, and misery. America built millions with workers who went home at night, free citizens on an assembly line. 112 companies. The first mass production of printed circuits. An electronic Manhattan project. The fuse alone wasn't enough. The British built a kill zone. Radar SCR-584 tracked targets automatically. The M9 gun director crunched the math, and the shells armed with VT fuses did the rest. 17% in June, 74 by August, then 82 in a single day. Impossible by German science, inevitable with Allied technology. Batteries were moved to the coast, not just for better range but to keep duds out of German hands. Every fuse fired was counted, every unexploded shell recovered. In the Pacific, the fuse turned 5-inch naval guns into walls of steel. Kamikaze attacks that once cost ships and lives now met detonations in mid-air. The proximity fuse has helped blaze the trail to Japan. Without it, the cost in men and ships would have been immeasurably greater. December 1944, the Battle of the Bulge. For the first time, the fuse was unleashed on land. 200,000 shells, codenamed Posit. They didn't hit the ground. They burst above it, shredding German infantry formations. Patton called it a game changer. Eisenhower agreed. In the Ardennes, artillery suddenly fought with surgical precision. When Antwerp came under V1 and V2 attack, the stakes rose again. Churchill personally approved an emergency mission. A Lancaster bomber flew across the Atlantic to collect a special batch of VT fuses from Crosley's plant in Cincinnati. The weapons reached Antwerp just in time. By late 1944, the secret was out not to the Germans, but to history. A radio the size of a thumb had turned the tide. Science, industry, and democracy had fused into one and made the impossible real. By the end of the campaign, Germany had launched 9,521 V1 flying bombs against Britain. Only 2,515 reached London. 6,184 were killed. 17,981 injured. Tragic, yes, but without the fuse, the numbers would have been 4, even 5 times higher. Each buzz bomb that fell short was a family that lived, a city block still standing, a factory still working for victory. The proximity fuse did not just protect London, it saved the Allied foothold in Europe. We thought it was another blitz, another winter of fire. But then, the bombs started falling short, exploding over the sea. For the first time, we believed we might outlast them. German officers searched for answers. They inspected the missiles. They suspected sabotage. They even test-fired Von Second on German soil. The weapons worked fine. The problem existed only when they faced British guns. Once, they even picked up a shell with a fuse still intact. But convinced such devices were impossible, they ignored what lay in their hands. After surrender, German scientists were shown the fuse. Men who had built jets, rockets, even the V2 itself, stared in disbelief. Tubes that survived 20,000 Gs. Circuits that fired after years in storage. They estimated themselves a decade behind. They had lost not to warriors in the skies, but to engineers on assembly lines, to radios smaller than a finger, to an idea they thought impossible. World War II was not only won on the battlefield, it was won in laboratories and factories. The proximity fuse multiplied every anti-aircraft gun's power 5 to 10 times. It turned probability into certainty. It turned terror into statistics. The War Department would call it second, only to the atomic bomb, a weapon so secret it was guarded as tightly as Manhattan. But unlike the bomb, it saved more lives than it destroyed. Germany built Wunderwaffe wonderweapons, handcrafted, scarce, fueled by forced labor. America built proximity fuses, millions of them, with democracy's industry, by workers who believed in something greater than themselves. The buzz bomb was Hitler's vengeance. The fuse was freedom's answer. It saved London. It secured the beachhead. It showed that in modern war, it was not the perfect weapon that mattered, but the ability to build good weapons, by the millions. It wasn't just bravery in the skies. It was engineers in labs, workers on assembly lines, women pulling 12-hour shifts soldering tiny tubes they never fully understood, but that changed the course of the war. On that August day, 82% of Hitler's vengeance weapons fell burning from the sky. London was spared, the invasion held, and democracy's industry had already won. Modern war is not decided by single wonder weapons. It is decided by systems, by the ability to turn science into millions of working parts, by the power to mass-produce good enough weapons faster than the enemy can dream of perfection. Germany built terror with slave labor. America built salvation with freedom, and in that contrast lay the true victory. The lesson is clear. In modern war, it isn't the perfect weapon that wins. It is the industrial system behind it. That day in August 1944 proved it, and it is a lesson that still echoes today.